Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Mukesh English, and this is your favorite YouTuber Mukesh Soni. Friends, in this video I'm going to explain the essay My Wood by the famous English writer, English author E.M.Forster, whose full name is Edward Morgan Foster, who is the famous English author who was born in London in 1879, and he's known for his insightful exploration of class, hypocrisy, and humanism. So this is about Mr. E.M. Forster. And what is this essay about? So here it's not a summary. Please keep in the mind, I'm not going to summarize here. I'm going to analyze here. I'm going to give an explanation of this essay because it's not a story, it's not a poem. So I'm going to explain the essay, and this explanation will help you to attempt 10 marks question as well as a 5 marks question from this lesson. And this lesson is in the syllabus of second semester BBA BHM General English under Bangalore University. So let's begin it. The introduction. E.M. Forster's essay, My Wood, is a light-hearted yet thought-provoking reflection on how owning property affects a person's emotions, thoughts, and behavior. So if you own a property, how is going to affect your emotions, your thoughts, and your behavior? How will it bring a change in your psychology once you own a property, once you become an owner of a property? So psychological effects. So, using the example of a small wood he bought with the money from one of his books, the E.M. Forster, the writer Forster, explores how ownership leads to the four important psychological effects. So, when you own a property, there will be the four important psychological effects which could be seen from a person. Number one, owning a property makes people to feel burdened. Number two, greedy for more. Number three, restless to change the things. And finally, possessive toward others. So these are the four important psychological effects of owning a property. We are going to discuss here from the point of view of E.M. Forster. So even in the textbook also, there's a very important question: in what way does Foster present the psychological effects of ownership? E.M. Foster presents this effect in four important ways. Number one, the very first way, property feels like a burden. The writer begins by saying that owning something makes him feel heavy. He does not mean this in a physical sense, but as a mental and emotional weight. When a person has property, they have he or she has responsibilities. They must take care of this property, they must maintain it, and they must protect it from any harm. So this burden grows over the time and making life more complicated. Then the writer also illustrates this idea with the biblical story of the rich man who could not enter heaven because he was too fat, too stout, or weighed down by his wealth, not by his physique, by his wealth. The gospel often compares wealth with slowness, suggesting that rich people are burdened by their possessions and they cannot move freely. E.M. Forster expands on this by pointing out that when you own things, they require upkeep. If you own furniture, it must be cleaned. If you have servants, you must manage them. If you have land, if you have land, you must look after this. So when you own something, what you have to do it, you have to look after, you have to update, you have to upkeep. So this is how it becomes a kind of a burden. Then the idea of weight, the idea of weight also applies to the decision making. Owning property means people think twice before taking simple actions. For example, if someone invites them to dinner or a trip, they hesitate because they are tied down by their responsibilities. In contrast, someone who owns little can move about freely without any worry. So, in this manner, E.M.Forster concludes that property, instead of making the life easier or more enjoyable, often makes the life more difficult and it becomes a kind of a burden. Second psychological effect by owning property is here desire to own more. Or chahiye. We need more, inan beko, something like this. The desire to own more. Once people own something, they rarely feel satisfied. They always want more. Dil mange more, right? The writer realizes this when he hears a twig snap in his wood. Twig, a kind of bird, a bird's voice in his wood, in his place. At first, he's annoyed because he thinks a person is picking berries, and damaging his property. But when he looks closer, he sees it was just a bird. He feels happy because it is his bird. However, the moment the bird flies into the neighboring land, he becomes annoyed again because now this is not his bird. It is the bird now belongs to his neighbor, Mrs. Hansey. Right. Then this incident makes the writer, realize that the problem is not the bird, it is a boundary of his own land. It is his wood, which is more bigger. The bird would have stayed if his so I'm sorry were if his wood were bigger, the bird would have stayed. So he starts thinking like a landowner who is never satisfied and always wants to expand. Foster humorously compares himself to historical figures like King Ahab and Alexander the Great, who always wanted more land. He even imagines the absurd idea of owning more and more land until he reaches the ocean, or even sending a flag to the moon to claim it. So his point is that the desire for ownership has no natural limit. Once a person owns something, they almost always want more. Dil mange more. The third psychological effect by owning a property, we find here the restlessness of ownership. The restlessness of ownership. This is the third psychological effect of owning a property. Owning something does not just make a person greedy, it also makes them feel that they must do something with their property. However, this feeling is often vague and always directionless. What is to be done to the property? Foster describes how after acquiring his wood, he begins to feel an urge to change it. The moment he acquires the wood, there was a feeling that I should change it. So what did he do? He considers cutting down the trees to clear the space or planting new trees to make it look more fuller, more bigger, or more beautiful. However, he realizes that both ideas are unnecessary. So these thoughts are not about making money or creating beauty. They are just an artificial need to express ownership. Then the writer compares this ownership to the artists who create works of art because they have something meaningful to express. However, property owners often confuse their need for purpose with creativity, leading them to make pointless changes just to feel in control. They'll be keep on bringing some changes, some sort of repair, some sort of reconstruction, just to satisfy themselves. Foster argues that property, sorry, property tricks people into believing it can bring happiness and self-development. Foster says that many people think that if they have property, it will bring happiness. It will also show a kind of self-development. But in reality, owning property brings frustration because no matter what they do, they never feel fully satisfied. So this is why he sees the ownership as a part of sinister trinity. What's a trinity? Sinister trinity. Three. One is creation, ownership, enjoyment, and these sinister trinity often leads to disappointment. He says that they will never feel satisfied. They'll be always revolving around creation, ownership, enjoyment, and finally it will lead to the disappointment. And finally, the fourth important psychological effect of owning property is the instinct to keep others out. The instinct to keep others out. As a property owner, Foster also begins to feel a desire to control access to his land. His wood has a public footpath running through it, which means that strangers often walk through. They pick blackberries, they pluck flowers, and sometimes even have picnics. So, this makes him question whether he truly owns the wood. If people can freely use it, does it really belong to him? So, this question leads him to think about extreme examples of ownership. He describes a landowner near Lime Regis who built high stone walls on both the sides of a footpath and constructed bridges over it. So, this way, the public could still walk through, but they would be completely separated from the owner's land, just like termites in a tunnel. Means to say, when the tunnel goes, you have the ownership with the upper part of the tunnel, right? So, Foster wonders if he too will become like this landowner, so obsessed with keeping others out that he builds walls around his wood. He jokes that if he does like this, he'll become enormously stout, endlessly avaricious, and pseudo creative, and intensely selfish if he does like this. So, in other words, he will turn into a caricature of greed and isolation. He also mentions the story of Dives and Lazarus, in which a rich man in hell is separated from a poor man by a deep chasm. Unlike Dives, who can at least see across the divide, the Lime Regis landowner has created a situation where no one can even glimpse his poverty. I'm sorry, glimpse his property. So this suggests that extreme ownership leads not just to greed, but to the total disconnection from the world. You'll be disconnected from the world if you have the extreme ownership about your towards your property. So finally, after thinking all those four important psychological effects of owning property, what does property really give us? This is a question the writer is going to pose to us, that what does property really give us? Foster concludes by reflecting on the true nature of property. He acknowledges that material things are necessary in life, but people have not yet learned how to handle their relationship with ownership. Property is supposed to bring security and happiness, but instead, property often brings weight, greed, restlessness, and selfishness. These are the four important psychological impact. Instead of helping people grow, it can trap them in a cycle of wanting more and more, more and more. The writer quotes the poet Dante, who wrote, "Possession is one with loss." That means when people try too hard to own things, they often lose something which is more important, such as freedom, simplicity, or peace of mind. So, in this manner, we can conclude this essay. I'm sorry. So, ultimately, Foster suggests that while property is a part of life, people should be careful not to let it control them. If they are not mindful, it can make them feel burdened, dissatisfied, and it will make them isolated from others. So, hence, We can conclude saying that at its core, the essay, My Wood, is not just about a small patch of land, it's about human nature and the way people relate to ownership. Through humor and personal reflection, E.M.Forster shows how something as simple as buying a wood can lead to deeper questions about greed, control, and satisfaction. His message is very much clear. What's the message? Property can be useful, but it can also be dangerous. If people are not careful, it can make them feel burdened, restless, and selfish. So instead of being controlled by the desire for more, they should learn to enjoy what they have without being obsessed with ownership. So in Hindi, this very nice proverb, क्या लेके आए थे क्या लेके जाओगे, so why to worry about all this property and these all these things. Have ownership, but enjoy it with a peaceful mindset, not with jealousy, not with the expansion, not with the restlessness, not as a property as a burden. So friends, this is how I have tried to explain or analyze the important essay My Wood by E.M. Forster. It's in the syllabus of second semester BBA-BHM General English under Bangalore University SCP syllabus. So friends, hope you have liked this video, and as I told you, it's in the explanation form. And if you like this video, click on like button, write in the comment box, subscribe the channel for more videos, and keep watching the description box and the playlist for more videos in the days to come. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, reach me at mukeshenglish@gmail.com, and stay tuned with Mukesh English.